Tonight on Reporting Scotland, an escalation in a gang war. Last night, 2 homes in Bishopbriggs were set on fire, and over the weekend, an elderly woman and a child were assaulted in their home.
There are arrests imminent. There will be arrests over the next few days as well. So I would like to reassure the public that this is getting taken very seriously.
Also on tonight's programme, warnings that children are waiting too long for autism and ADHD diagnoses. Rosie waited 5 years, but says having a support worker now makes a difference.
I wasn't as smiley or as happy back then, but she's definitely helped bring me back out of my shell.
Psychiatrists are warning children are coming to harm while on hidden waiting lists for autism and ADHD assessments. Homes on Edinburgh's Baberton Mains Avenue are being demolished over a year after a man was killed in a gas explosion. And a new initiative to give citizen scientists the chance to identify climate change effects on beaches.
Coming up in the sport, the Premiership table splits in 2 and clubs discover their final 5 fixtures of the campaign.
Hi, I'm Laura McKeever. Welcome to Monday's programme. Psychiatrists are warning children in Scotland are coming to harm while on hidden waiting lists for autism and ADHD assessments, despite mental health targets being met for the first time. The Royal College of Psychiatrists says the Scottish Government should be transparent about thousands of young people not included in official figures for child and adolescent mental health services, otherwise known as CAMS, but who are sometimes waiting for years for neurodevelopmental support. Our health correspondent Lisa Summers reports.
It was very tricky. I wasn't in school, so I felt very anxious about leaving the house a lot because I was struggling. I didn't have that many friends.
Rosie regularly meets her support worker Rebecca at an Edinburgh charity. They've been helping her return to school after struggling with anxiety through COVID.
What classes did you have to do, Rosie?
I had English.
Rosie was first referred to child and adolescent mental health services at the age of 8. It took 5 years for her to be diagnosed with autism. Only after that was she able to access help. The teenager, who also lives with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, credits Rebecca with helping her manage her conditions.
I'm definitely a lot more bubbly of a person. I wasn't as smiley or as happy back then, but she's definitely helped bring me back out of my shell.
Last month, CAMS targets were met for the first time, but the official figures don't include children referred specifically for neurodivergent conditions such as autism or ADHD. Psychiatrists say these young people are moved on to separate waiting lists with no requirement to record how many children are on them or how long they'll have to wait.
But when you have children who I suppose are at risk, who are self-harming, who are not eating, those children, rightly so, do have to be prioritised, but it doesn't take away from the fact that the children with the neurodevelopmental conditions do still need a diagnosis sometimes to receive the correct support, and it's the same staff doing the same job across the board. If children are waiting years, I suppose that's having an impact on their education, it's having an impact on their social life, on their family life, so those children are being let down.
The government acknowledges long waits are unacceptable, but says it's increasing funding to improve access to services. More awareness of neurodiverse conditions has contributed to growing numbers of young people seeking help.
Demand is huge and we're only scratching the surface. We do try our very best, but we can't possibly respond to the levels of demand that are out there. It's just impossible to service.
The Royal College of Psychiatrists says publishing data on neurodiversity is the only way to fully understand how many children are waiting for help. Lisa Summers, Reporting Scotland.
Detectives investigating a gangland feud have condemned what they called an abhorrent and cowardly attack which left a 12-year-old boy and a 72-year-old woman in hospital. The pair suffered what's been described as significant injuries after teenagers wearing balaclavas burst into their home in Glasgow at the weekend. This morning, 2 houses in Bishopbriggs were targeted in fire-raising attacks. The officer in charge of the inquiry says arrests will follow within days. Our Home Affairs correspondent David Cowan reports.
The police say this video and its taunting soundtrack glamorises what they've called despicable and dangerous acts. It shows an attack on a house linked to the Daniel family, who've been described in court as a serious organised crime group. The home in Bishopbriggs was targeted at 10 to 1, the same time as another house was torched just streets away. Fire-raising attacks on houses in the early hours of the morning have been known to cause serious injury or death. Instead of petering out, this increasingly dangerous vendetta appears to be escalating. The most serious incident yet took place at 10 past midnight on Saturday morning. 2 teenagers wearing balaclavas burst into this house in Milton in Glasgow and attacked a 12-year-old boy and a 72-year-old woman. Both of them are still in hospital today.
Well, it's certainly a very serious incident. Attacking an elderly lady and a 12-year-old boy in their home is significant. So in terms of that, there's a full investigation ongoing into that, but I agree it is an abhorrent act, and every facet of Police Scotland is being directed to bring those responsible to justice.
The violence began in Edinburgh at the start of last month. Within weeks, the feud had spread to the west, culminating in the attacks over the weekend and this morning. 12 incidents so far. 6 people have been arrested. The officer in charge says more will follow soon.
When do you hope to get a grip on this? When do you hope to bring it to an end?
This is ongoing. It wouldn't be right for me to put a time frame on it. However, there are arrests imminent. There will be arrests over the next few days as well. So I would like to reassure the public that this is getting taken very seriously. There is significant resource, both locally and regionally, nationally, across Police Scotland, and we will be making arrests and bringing people to justice.
A former crime writer turned politician says the feud is the continuation of a war between drugs gangs which began 20 years ago.
And if the police don't get a grip of this, and if the government don't ensure the police have the tools to do so, and the courts aren't equipped to deal with them effectively, then more people will be harmed, and in all likelihood, more people will be killed.
The Scottish Government will point to record levels of funding for the police. Over 100 officers are working on the inquiry. They're asking anyone with information on the attacks to come forward. David Cowan, reporting Scotland, Glasgow.
The First Minister has warned of the risk of a possible recession. John Swinney's not predicting the economy will start to shrink, but he said that was more likely following President Trump's introduction of tariffs on goods imported to the United States. At a news conference in Edinburgh, Mr Swinney was asked if there was a chance Scotland could go into a recession between now and the election.
I don't know, but I think there's a risk of it. And that's why I'm setting out the steps that I'm taking today, because I want to make sure we're as front-footed as we can be to resist that eventuality. So I can't say to you with certainty it will happen, but I think there's a risk it might, and therefore we've got to be on the front foot to resist that.
Well, our political editor Glenn Campbell joins me now. Glenn, what does the First Minister think needs done?
Well, he wants governments to take action to avert any negative economic impacts that might follow from President Trump pursuing tariffs on imports of goods from around the world into the United States. He had a lot to say today about what he would like the UK government to do, given that it has far more economic clout than the government here in Scotland. He told us that when he and other devolved leaders had a conversation with the Prime Minister on Friday, that he, Mr Swinney, urged the UK government to rewrite their fiscal rules that currently mean they won't borrow cash in order to fund day-to-day government spending. We know that Mr Swinney wants them to scrap the introduction of an increase in employers' national insurance contributions, and the First Minister said today that if there is to be a nationalisation of British Steel at Scunthorpe, the UK government should do the same for the oil refinery at Grangemouth. Now, UK ministers do not see these two situations as comparable and have pointed out that they have found £200 million in funding to help at Grangemouth. John Swinney had less to say about the actions he intends to take beyond meeting businesses and unions on Wednesday, but he has promised to bring forward his agenda for government, his programme for government, from September to the beginning of May, and that means that he'll have an opportunity to set out some new thinking there, and that he will have a full year before the Holyrood elections to try and deliver on any new pledges.
OK, Glenn Campbell at Holyrood, many thanks. And our business and economy editor Douglas Fraser joins me now. Douglas, the First Minister said we are closer to a recession, are we?
Well, he's reflecting opinion across experts on the economy in Scotland, in the UK and globally as well. In Britain, including Scotland, there's a sense that growth through the winter, the autumn we've just been through has been really weak and quite close to recession. That's poor business investment, sluggish consumer demand, and for years, very poor productivity growth. So growth has not really picked up until last month. We got better figures, but an expectation that the figures we're going to see with the start of the financial year, with new tax coming in on business, making it less likely that the businesses will recruit and invest. That's going to be a break on British and Scottish growth. But add to that a trade war coming out of the White House, clearly affecting the whole world, and that's going to drive up prices. It may lower some prices temporarily. Interest rates staying higher for longer, so less growth as a result of that. We should be clear that Scotland is not particularly vulnerable to the trade war, not like the English car industry, for instance, but nowhere is safe from the effects of this. Not necessarily direct effects, but the secondary effects. When another country can't sell into the United States, it may dump products on the world market and undercut businesses here, even if that seems quite attractive to have lower prices for consumers.
And Douglas, there are now calls to nationalise Grangemouth.
Yes, as you're hearing from Glen, Scunthorpe in Lincolnshire is the last place where blast furnaces make virgin steel in the UK. It's seen as a strategic industry, and the case has been made by the SNP today by the First Minister that Grangemouth should be treated in much the same way, nationalisation, something that the SNP has not been keen on talking about before now, but things are changing fast in the world economy. The case for the Grangemouth oil refinery is that it's also of strategic interest. It faces closure within the next few weeks and 400 jobs are at stake there. There are similarities. Both have at least part Chinese ownership and both are in a very difficult transition from being very heavily polluting industries to try to get to a greener part of the economy. But on Grangemouth, the governments, UK and Scottish government, are aligned with what the owners of Grangemouth are trying to do eventually in moving towards, for instance, refining biofuels. It's going to be very expensive. Nationalisation would require taking up an awful lot of government capital in order to do that if it were nationalised. That move to biofuels, which eventually we hope to see in Grangemouth, is something that both the industry, the private owners and government want to see.
OK. Douglas Fraser, many thanks indeed. Now, almost a year and a half after a gas explosion destroyed part of an Edinburgh street, killing a pensioner and injuring 2 others, a demolition team has begun tearing down some of the damaged properties. As an investigation into the blast continues, one Baberton resident says it's taken far too long to reach this stage, and they've been left feeling that no one cares. Stephen Godden reports.
It was December 2023 when, without warning, an explosion tore homes to pieces in this Edinburgh street. 84-year-old James Smith was killed, the destructive force of the blast clear for all to see. Gary Taylor owned one of the damaged houses. 17 months on, his relief at watching it coming down is mixed with anger.
The lack of anything happening, 17 months, I just think that's ridiculous, and I wish somebody would say to us, I'm sorry for the delays.
Living in rented accommodation with his wife Norma, Gary says residents have been stuck in limbo between Edinburgh Council, who took control of the unsafe buildings, and their insurers.
When I contacted the council, they were basically saying, no, it's not our fault, it's the loss adjusters. When I contacted the loss adjuster, it was, no, it's the council, they've been hopeless. Yeah, and they're standing in our way. So they're just batting it back and forward, and you're in the middle.
Stressing that these are private properties, Edinburgh Council says it's worked to support residents as much as possible, but that next steps are a matter for owners and insurers.
The site has been sealed off since the explosion, but last week the council handed responsibility over to the demolition company. They're now in the process of knocking down 6 of the houses, with the plan to build new ones in their place.
In the days after the explosion, the initial focus was on gas installations inside one of the houses, but the investigation into the cause, led by the police, continues.
Do you have the answers that you're looking for? Or
No, we've never.
Get them?
No, I don't think so. I think it's gone on too far. To be honest, I'm past blaming anybody. What's the point in that? It's happened. We just want to forget about it and get back in.
That's supposed to happen next summer, although the Taylors are cautious about the timetable. And with other residents still unsure about the future of their property, that long sense of uncertainty hasn't yet been stripped away. Stephen Gordon reporting Scotland, Baberton.
Now, the long-awaited redevelopment of one of Scotland's most well-known public spaces is getting underway. The project to redevelop George Square in Glasgow is due to take 18 months, which means it won't be finished until after the Commonwealth Games. Public access to most of the square will be closed off in the next few days. Our news correspondent Jamie McIver has more.
It's seen many moments of protest through the decades, moments of history, and countless moments of joy. George Square is one of Scotland's most well-known public spaces, but in recent years it's been looking run down. Now a huge redevelopment is finally getting underway, promising much more green space and high-quality stone paving instead of tarmac.
The renovation of George Square is something that we've been talking about in Glasgow for literally decades. It's really long overdue. And I think everyone recognises that the square has been looking a bit tired in recent years. So the fact that we're now finally able to move forward with this long anticipated restoration and renovation is really, really exciting.
The first evidence of the huge building project ahead could be seen today. And within days, a huge hoarding will close off public access to most of the square.
You think if this was a bit more attractive, then more people would use it, would congregate here.
But some may question the cost.
Really don't know, why they're bothering now when we're so short of money, because they're not changing the area of the square. But I'm a tourist guide, and lots of people like to come to the square. So I do hope they make a nice job, whatever they do. Lots of flowers, guys, lots of flowers.
The work on the square is due to take 18 months. Glasgow City Council is likely to be under scrutiny to try to ensure the work doesn't go significantly behind schedule or over budget.
The last big plan for changes to George Square collapsed in controversy more than 10 years ago. This time the council say they're confident the new look square will be worth the wait. Jamie McIver, reporting Scotland.
Right, News at 7 is on shortly over on BBC Scotland, and Amy is here to tell us what's coming up.
Hi Laura, plenty in the programme, of course. The conversation all around Grangemouth today, so we're going to be looking at the pros and cons of nationalisation. Also, we meet Erin Lavery, who has been diagnosed with cancer and has built up this incredible online following. She talks about how it's not only helped other people, her videos, but obviously how it's helped her as well. And there are 31 Highland cow calves expected at Pollock Park in the next few months, so we see all about the preparations.
They're so cute. Amy, thank you. We'll see you at 7. Now, the Scottish Government ministers' salaries are to rise by more than £19,000 after a voluntary pay freeze that's lasted for 16 years was partially lifted. The change will mean junior ministers will be paid £100,000 and cabinet secretaries will receive just over £116,000. John Swinney has chosen to keep his salary as First Minister frozen. Opposition parties said the increases were not justified by performance and were a reward for failure. Now, Scotland has more than its fair share of beautiful beaches, but they're not immune to the impact of pollution and climate change. In the Western Isles, a new initiative's been launched which will give citizen scientists the chance to help identify emerging trends. Andrew Thompson has the story.
The Western Isles has some of the most pristine-looking beaches in the British Isles, but even here the impact of the modern world can be felt, and locals have been stepping in to help with litter picks.
I was horrified to see the amount of little bits of plastic on the beach. And I was thinking, I wonder who deals with this. I looked round and couldn't find anyone. And the thought was with me, and I kept on looking and not finding. Then the BBC programme, Blue Planet 2 came on. It was my catalyst. I had to do something.
It would take 7 years if the group cleaned a different island beach each and every day, but help's now at hand for the litter pickers in the shape of a big blue bag.
The idea of the big blue bag is to empower people to create data on their own set of coastline of really key measures of ocean health. So that's microplastics, coastal debris, ecosystem health and water temperature. And they're all very important metrics in terms of judging the health of the ocean and also understanding trends in the sea.
Around 170 trillion pieces of microplastics are estimated to be in the world's oceans, and Toby here is being shown how to measure the number on this beach at Tolsta. Another 50 of these bags will be donated to other groups across the country, and all the information gathered will be uploaded onto an app, helping to create a sharper picture of the health of Scotland's coasts. Andrew Thompson, reporting Scotland.
Right, time to get tonight's sport now. Lewis is here and you've got some table talk for us tonight.
Absolutely, Laura. It's getting to crunch time in the season and it's heading into the post-split fixtures, so thanks very much. We've got plenty to get through. Cheers. Hello there. Well, Celtic will win the Premiership title at Tannadice if they avoid defeat against Dundee United in their first post-split fixture. The games were published by the SPFL this afternoon, so let's have a look. The defending champions need just one more point to make it 4 titles in a row. It's 3rd versus 5th. As Hibernian head to Aberdeen there too, and St Mirren host Rangers. At the bottom there, Hearts take on Dundee, it's Kilmarnock against Ross County, and bottom club St Johnstone head to Motherwell. Now the Rangers coach Barry Ferguson says his players will be ready to go to war with Athletic Bilbao to battle for a place in the Europa League semi-finals after a late equaliser at Pittodrie. Aberdeen were 2-0 ahead, Leighton Clarkson and Pape Gay with the goals. But Hamza Egeman threw the visitors a lifeline before Yanis Hadji made it 2-2 with almost the last kick. Rangers now take a 0-0 first leg score to Spain and try to overcome a Bilbao side who beat Rayo Vallecano 3-1 last night in La Liga. Well, as we've just seen, Hearts, like all the clubs in the bottom 6, have 5 games to preserve their Premiership status. But one of their best ever players says the club's poor season has been magnified by the incredible form of their city rivals Hibernian. A win against either Dundee United or Motherwell would have sealed Hearts' place in the top 6, but they blew it. These were the scenes at the goalless Fir Park on Saturday, with both clubs missing out in the top half of the table. Next up for Hearts, a Scottish Cup semi-final against Aberdeen.
The fact now that the Hearts haven't made the top 6, this right now is his biggest opportunity from now till potentially a cup final to put a marker down and say, you know what, of course I'm capable of winning big games, and that's how big a game it is. But sometimes they say the frustrations are Hearts fans will look across the city and see what's happening there, and it gets even more frustrating for them because of how Hibs are doing. Hibs are winning big games, Hearts are not winning big games.
Well, this is how the Premiership looks after 33 games. St Mirren, they're squeezing into the top half for the 3rd straight season. We'll have more on the Buddies over on Reporting Scotland News at 7 later. Hearts now, though, trapped in the bottom 6, just 6 points above 11th placed Dundee, who sit in the relegation playoff spot. St Johnstone have 5 games to avoid the drop, but that'll be a tough ask as they're 5 points adrift. To rugby now, and Scotland head coach Brian Eason says his side didn't do themselves justice as they lost 25-17 to Italy in the Women's Six Nations, a result that leaves them 5th in the table after 3 games. Scotland got to within 3 points of the Italians at the Hive Stadium when Fran McGee touched down, but as they pressed for a late winner, Ora Muzzo scored her 2nd try of the match to clinch the win. With a game against England next, Scotland back Lisa Thompson hopes the team can learn from their mistakes. Edinburgh Rugby are just 2 wins away from collecting the first major trophy in the club's history as they set up a mouth-watering European Cup challenge against semi-final against Bath. Edinburgh were rewarded with a place in the last 4 after beating the Bulls 34-28 on home turf in a pulsating encounter on Saturday. And it's the visit of Finn Russell and Bath to the capital that adds an extra edge to next month's clash.
Oh, it's going to be special, isn't it? I can't wait for it. You know, a big semi-final in European competition. The Harv probably hasn't seen that yet, so it's going to be a special day, and yeah, so I'm sure it's going to be a sellout there.
And some great news to end on. Scotland's curlers made history yesterday by becoming the first men's team to win 4 Grand Slam events in a single season. And that's in addition to being the world champions too. A week ago, Team Mowat beat Switzerland's Team Schwaller to win the world title. And yesterday, the rinks met again in the Players' Championship final in Toronto. Mowat nailed his final shot in overtime to add that title to the Tour Challenge, the National and the Canadian Open. A truly incredible achievement. So plenty of celebrating for Bruce Mowat and co over the last few weeks. They've had a good time.
They really have. Lewis, thank you so much. Right, let's get some weather now. Kirstine is here. It's really April weather now, isn't it? We were spoiled with all that sunshine.
Yes, a very different feel to the weather this week, Laura. If you cast your mind back, a week ago, we were forecasting sunshine and warmth. And the other side to spring this week, certainly. We've had a very changeable day of weather, and certainly that is the word I would use to describe it this week. Thanks very much. Good evening to you. Yes, as I say, a very changeable week of weather in prospect. Today we had some sunshine, but there was some rain and showers, and certainly more of that to come throughout the week. Low pressure never too far away, delivering these frontal systems, so quite a change compared with last week. To this evening and tonight, a good deal of cloud with some outbreaks of rain across southern, central and eastern Scotland. The clearest skies in the northwest, just a scattering of showers here. Under clear skies for some sheltered rural areas, a touch of frost, but for the most part holding up around 3 to 6 Celsius. To tomorrow then, we start with a lot of cloud, that rain across southern, central and eastern areas, tending to fizzle and fade away as we go through the day. Still some rain lingering in Shetland tomorrow afternoon, albeit fairly light and patchy. That cloud, though, across eastern, central and southern Scotland will be thick enough at times to produce the odd spot of drizzle. Temperature-wise, around 11 to 13 Celsius. The best of the sunshine will be around western coastal areas, Skye, the northwest Highlands and the Western Isles. Just an isolated shower here. Tomorrow evening and night, there is more rain on the way, moving in from the south. But there is a degree of uncertainty regarding Wednesday's forecast. We have this area of low pressure. It's going to slowly move northwards. Its associated frontal systems, the exact positioning of these is open to some doubt. However, on current thinking, Wednesday is looking like a cloudy day with lots of rain in the forecast. It's going to be pivoting around, persistent and heavy at times for western, northern and southwestern areas. Further east, there will be some heavy downpours and temperatures down a notch with a north to northeasterly flow. Thursday, we return to scattered showers and spells of sunshine. That's the forecast.
Business as usual. Thanks, Kirstine.
Yes.
Thank you for being with us tonight. I'll be here with your late news around 10:30 tonight. Join me then. From all of us, bye-bye.